Assalamualaikum and a very good day. I paid to my lecture. So, my name is Kari Iliani. I am from Korea 16. In this video, my friends and I are going to present the advantages and disadvantages of using cast iron. Okay, so in this presentation, we will include introduction to cast iron, application, advantages, and the disadvantages of the cast iron. Okay, so the first thing first. What exactly is cast iron? To know this, we need to know what is casting first. So casting is a process in which a liquid material is poured into a mold, which contains a hollow cavity of the desired shape and allowed to solidify. So one of the examples of the material that we can use in this casting process is iron. Okay, so basically, casting is when you melt a certain material. In this case is iron. You melt the material to turn it into a liquid form, and when you turn it into a liquid form, you pour it onto a mold so that it could be molded to form a specific shape to serve a specific function. So a cast iron is actually a ferrous alloy that contains 4% of carbon in it. It is a molten iron from the bottom of a surface. Its properties includes that it is very fluidy in a molten state, and also it does not shrink much after it solidifies, which makes it the ideal material to be used in a casting process. After the iron solidified, it formed a hard and brittle solid. Okay, so we used this iron cast for the manufacture of a few daily items for daily use, such as manhole covers, guttering, drain pipes, and also engines. Okay, so the process of iron casting will be shown in the video.
Next, we will discuss about the application of cast iron. There are different types of cast iron, but today we are going to focus on the grey iron because it is the main material used in the making of cast iron engines. So for grey iron, its key characteristics is its ability to resist wear even when lubrication supply is limited. Because of this property, grey iron is used to make engine blocks and cylinder heads, manifolds, gas burners, gear blanks, enclosures, and housings. Besides, we also have the white iron, the ductile iron, the malleable iron, and the compacted graphite iron. Here is a picture showing the internal structures of different types of cast iron, and as you can see, all of them are different, and due to the different internal structures of this cast iron, they have different properties, and hence they are suitable to be used for different purposes. Here is a picture of the cast iron engine. Here are the components of the cast iron engine. These components are found in most engines, but in the cast iron engine, these components are made from cast iron. Firstly, we have the engine block, which is the backbone of the engine. All components of the engine are connected to the engine block. Second, we have the cylinder, which is a space which piston travels in the engine. It also facilitates the cooling of the engine. And finally, we have the crankshaft, which is a moving part of the internal combustion engine, and it converts linear motion to rotational motion. Here are two examples of cast iron engine. On the left is a cast iron engine of a tractor, and on the right is a Ford car with a turbocharged petrol engine which is made from cast iron. Now we are going to look at the process of casting engine blocks, which is the process of which cast iron engines are made. In this process, molten cast iron is poured into a mold made of sand, and after the iron solidifies and cools down, it is removed. The mold can be made from other materials too, but the most common material used is sand.
Hello, my name is Kitra Inara, and I will be presenting on the advantages of cast iron. As it's been said before, there are four main types of cast iron, which is grey cast iron, white cast iron, ductile cast iron, and malleable cast iron. First off, we have the grey cast iron, which is the most commonly used. Now, grey cast iron has a lower melting point. That's one of its advantages that makes it better to be used compared to other metals. This means that it's easier to melt it and weld it and manipulate it. Basically, it has a greater ability to be made into machines and stuff. And then next, we have the fact that it has a high level of stability. Now, this is because it has its composition is made up of graphite flakes, which is a grey crystalline, organic crystalline, and this graphite flakes in its composition makes it much more stable to be used. Now, it does not shrink during the casting process, and lastly, it is corrosion resistant. So this means that it does not rust easily when in contact with air and water. Next, we have the white cast iron. Now, it is very hard and it is very wear resistant, so you can use it for a long time and it will not break down. It can withstand high impact force and friction. This makes it resistant to compression, so anything that presses down on it for a long period of time, it will not break or crack. And lastly, it is useful in high heat application. As we can see in this one of the pictures, there is cookingware, and white cast iron is used as also grey cast iron is used a lot in cookingware because of its high heat of its tendency to withstand high heat. Next, we have the ductile cast iron. As in its name, it is the most ductile of all the cast irons. This is because it is less brittle, meaning that its ability to break down is not as prominent as other metals, so it's not easy to break it. And like before, it is wear resistant and it has a high yield strength. Now, this means that like white cast iron, it is not easy to be deformed under compression. So it is the composition of it will not be easy to break apart under high force. That's what it means by high yield strength. And lastly, we have the malleable cast iron. Now, the malleable cast iron is resistant to cracking. Unlike the white cast iron, which once it cracks, it can be easier to be cracked. Malleable cast iron is actually more resistant to cracking. So this is because it has a higher stress absorption. So if any force stress put upon it, it can absorb that stress and not break down. It has high tensile and rupture strength, like said before. It is the same, meaning that it won't break down that easily, basically. So whatever tension you put on it, it won't break down. And it's resistant to wear and tear. And lastly, it has a tough jolt resistance. Now this means that it is an electrical insulator. So this this means that it can withstand heavy load and is also resistant to thermal shock. Now, specifically for engines, the gray cast iron is mostly used in the making of engine blocks. So this is because of, like I said before, its high resistance to breaking down, the fact that it's not easily deformed. It is a much lower cost to use compared to other metals. So a lot of the industry would rather take cast iron in to use for their machines. It is stable, high tensile strength, high stress and damping absorption. Damping is also, it can just absorb all the force it's exposed to. It is thermal resistant, so it's heat resistant, corrosion resistant, meaning rust resistant, and finally resistant to wear and tear. That's it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Azainal bin Zulahmat and my matrix number is AS11896. Now I'm going to continue our group presentation on disadvantages of cast iron core. As you can see from the slides, there are a few disadvantages of cast iron core that we have divided to each type of the cast iron core, which are the grey cast iron, white cast iron, ductile cast iron, malleable cast iron, and graphite cast iron. So now let us have a look on the first type of cast iron, which is grey cast iron. So one of the disadvantages is it has low tensile strength. So this makes it poor shock resistor. Next, it is also less rigid, low varieties. Now let's continue to the second type of cast iron core, which is white cast iron. So the first disadvantage is prone to rusting. The main material of white cast iron is iron, so it can easily react with water and oxygen from the air to form rust. So basically, white cast iron can easily form rust. Next, there's a part of white cast iron are section sensitive. This is happen because due to the slowing down this happen due to slow cooling of thick sections. Next, the third type of cast iron core is ductile cast iron. The first disadvantage is it is prone to corrosion, which means it can easily corrode. The next disadvantage is it has a poor heat resistance. So when you apply high heat on this type of cast iron, the strength and the stiffness of this cast iron will be deteriorate. The fourth type of cast iron is malleable cast iron. So basically, the first disadvantage of this cast iron is it has a high brittleness, so it means it can easily broken. So when you try to change the shape or bend it, it will broken into pieces. And the second disadvantage is it is also prone to rusting, which means it can easily form rust because the main material also are iron. So it can react with oxygen and water from the air to form rust. The last type of cast iron is graphite cast iron. So the disadvantage is poor machinability. This is happen because the graphite cast iron is hard to use in machine. And the last one is the weight of this iron is too high, but the strength is good. So even though the strength is good, the weight is too heavy. So this is make one of the disadvantage of graphite cast iron. So I think that is all from our group.